Welcome, everyone, to the Next Best Picture podcast, where we are talking with Halfdan Ullmann Tøndel, the writer and director of Armand. Halfdan, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Very excited to talk to you about this film. I had spoken with Renate, your star, earlier this week, and she said that you had first come to her with the idea for this film quite a few years ago. So I'm curious what your inspiration was for this story and how it developed over the years into the feature film that we are now seeing.
Yeah, I first of all I had the idea for the character that Renate plays, and I told her about this character in 2016, 2017. But at that time I didn't know, in which film this character was supposed to be in. So a couple of months later, I heard this story about something that happened between two 6-year-old boys on a camping trip, and it was only like a 15-second story where one of the boys had said something to another, which was kind of like an adult thing to say. And I was like, okay, how could a 6-year-old have that kind of language? Where have they learned something like that? And then my imagination started spinning on who the boys were, even though I'd never met them, never, I didn't know them, and who the parents was. And I kind of understood, okay, there's maybe something here then I can, fantasize further on and dramatize. And also, I've been working in a primary school in for 3 years. And of course took a lot of experience from that job into this, and the rest it's like different parts of my life throughout 7 years, uh, a chaotic mind, and then it turned out to be this.
Like I can imagine, I can only imagine how working in a school would have influenced this movie. Children are fascinating, but the parents are something
More
else.
fascinating.
Yes. Yeah. Did you always write this character in this film with Renata in mind as to be playing with her? And how did that influence your writing of her? Was it about knowing her skill set and what she can bring, or the way she speaks, or how did you shape this character to her?
Yeah, that's a good question. We did a short film together in 2016, and it was only like 2 shooting days. But it was a real, like, genuine, fantastic, magical, chemical, creative chemistry. And I also saw something during that shoot, but also later in kind of a test shoot for another short film, where she showed some, like, um really like strongness and almost like brutality in her acting, which inspired me a lot. She had a lot of power in her and a lot of like fierce intensity, which I had never seen in her before, and also not in so many other actors. So for me, the sky was the limit for what she could do. I felt in this film, and of course we became really close friends. And even though nothing is like inspired from her real life in the film, of course there's a big advantage for me having getting to know her, the way she talks, and can write more nuanced to her specifically. And of course, her career blew up during my writing, which was also kind of crazy, because when I started writing, she was an actor who had done one really big movie, and that was like 3 years before she had done it. So we kind of joked around that I wrote what happened to her, but not the other, but not the other stuff though. All of
It's
that.
absolutely. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Um, the other big character in this movie is the building, the school itself. And so I'm curious, what were you looking for in the location to shoot this film? And how long did the search take before you found the building you ended up using?
Yeah, it was a really big search because I had imagined this school for so many years before we started searching for this actual school. And you know how it looked in my imagination. There was no school that kind of fitted that image, of course. So I guess we looked into around 250, 300 schools or something like that, and then we found this one in the end, and this one had a lot of qualities that was super necessary. It had an architecture which was really interesting. It had the stone floors. It had, the geography that I kind of liked with the hallways and things like that. And we also had with this school the flexibility to do stuff with it. We could build a red bathroom, we could build the classrooms inside other classrooms. So we had, some creative leverage doing this because the school this school was on the west coast of Norway, and there they are more welcoming to film teams because they haven't had that before. So thought it was really cool that we were going to shoot there, but schools in the capital wouldn't let us paint one stroke on the wall even. So I mean, it was just a blessing in disguise finding this school on the west coast of Norway. I really love the school. It's a super important character, as you say in the movie, of course. And yeah, a very, very strong. I had a very strong feeling on how the school was supposed to feel like and look like from the very start of my writing, and I'm very happy that we were able to kind of do that.
Yeah, that's really wonderful. What was the most difficult part of shooting in this school building?
No, it was not so difficult, like because we had a lot of room and a lot of freedom. It was summer vacation while we shot it, so it was not. The shoot itself was very intense. It was difficult because it was such a short shoot. It was 21 days for a film that was super ambitious and also very like technical and in all departments, and very difficult for the actors with so much dialogue, so much feelings and emotions and things like this. So the time was the big challenge of this film, and it was really pushing the crew and the actors towards the limit, and me myself towards the limit of what we were capable of doing. But we got there, thanks to an amazing group of people.
It's really
But
great. That's
but
really great to
it
hear.
did cost a little bit.
Well, of course,
Of
everything
course.
costs. Oh,
Not in dollars, but in 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 other things.
yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, like as a writer and director, when you're directing, you're going to be directing the thing that you're writing. While you were writing, were you already thinking of the visuals and how it would look while you write? Yeah.
Yeah, that's inevitable in a way when I write because you imagine it so very strongly. And also I write from quite a director standpoint as well because I write ideas that I get energy out of as a director. I think some director writers is better to like separate the two roles, but for me,
Mm.
those two roles go hand in hand. And I think that's at least for me it's a strength because then I can have the freedom to write in stuff that in if I was supposed to write for some other people, then I couldn't write those ideas, I think. For example, the laughter scene. I think that would be very difficult to write for another director, to be honest.
Mm.
Because being a writer having to convince a director for a 10-minute laughing scene, I don't know.
Yeah,
So some things are better to just write and direct yourself, and that's also the good thing about writing and directing yourself and working in Norway because I have Final Cut as well, so I can write things a little bit kinder in the script than I imagining directing it on set, but and then the producers can't say shit about it.
Very smart.
It's too late.
So even it sounds like you have some everything, pretty well thought out before you even got on set to direct it. But even still, was there anything that you found about the film in the editing process that surprised you or that you hadn't thought of before?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, mm, I feel I was like constantly surprised that,
Mm,
this is, or at least I think this is, much of it is working, you know. I, but actually with this film, a lot of the things that is in the film was also like planned and scripted, in a way. So it was not like a big reveal in the editing, like, oh shit, this is how this scene is, or things like that. But we were kind of just like pushing the limits for what we could do the whole time. And speaking of some of the scenes that you are pushing quite far, that was the like biggest challenge, of course, in the editing, and also with all the dialogue scenes, finding out what kind of information we needed to tell the story.
mhm. I can imagine it was a really exciting, interesting process because there's a lot going on in this movie, and yeah.
Very interesting process, and we had to like find the balance also between the satirical elements and the dramatic elements, and the kind of meta layers of the film. For example, the first half of the film, they are just like talking and talking and talking and talking, but without any like real progress. And this is like a Kafkaesque kind of process. The allegation keeps escalating without any new information really coming on board. So trying to find that balance when but between the satirical and the dramatical, between the things that the audience has to engage in, but also like bringing in this kind of circular
Mm.
dramaturgy, especially in the first half.
Yeah, I like that. I like that the way you describe that a lot. Yeah. I know we're coming up on the end of our time together, but I wanted to ask, this is your first full-length feature film. You've directed a couple of shorts before, but how did it feel to have this film not just accepted to the Cannes Film Festival, but then to win the Caméra d'Or for Best First Feature?
And the travel with this film has been exceeding all my expectations. Getting the call to get into Cannes was like a first shock, and it was our ambition. But I was so happy that we made it into to that festival, which is like the holy grail for me, as a filmmaker. And after that, it's been a real like amazing journey with the European Film Awards. With DGA coming up now. With the Oscars shortlist, even though we didn't reach the nomination, it has been so much fun traveling around, showing the film to people. I could never imagine. It's a small film from Norway. I mean, it's a really, even in Norwegian scale, it's a quite small film. So that's the yeah, the fact that we have mm, getting so much out of it. It's just really fantastic. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, it's very deserved. It's a really striking, intriguing first feature, and I'm very excited for you and your success. And as we say goodbye, do you know what's next for you?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
started writing finally on something new. This US trip is actually my last trip with this film, as far as I know, and I have to write now. So I have started writing on something new, which I'm very excited about. It will be with Renate as well, in a quite extreme role. So it will be exciting.
Fantastic. I'm already looking forward to it. Halfdan, thank you so much again for joining us today, and congratulations.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.